Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm trying some weird and awesome art apps. So I was scrolling through Twitter and an artist I followed shared an art app that looked kind of fun to use. And it got me wondering if there are any other art apps that are maybe weird, interesting, or useful. And I actually did find some and I'll be sharing them with you in this video. Also, just so you know, none of the art apps I'm talking about are sponsoring this video. So the first app I found that I thought was neat is Tracing Projector. This app lets you trace over images. Basically, the app uses your device's camera to see your paper. And if you look at your device's screen, you can see the image on your paper. So it's sort of like a projector, but it's not actually like projecting like a light. You're just looking at the image through your screen. At first I was like, would I ever really use this? I'm not really interested in just tracing over pictures. But then I thought I could use this to transfer my digital sketches onto paper. So first I need a sketch that I can transfer. I'm drawing this in Ibis Paint X on my iPad. I wasn't totally sure what to draw, so I started looking around my room for inspiration. And the Kitchen Princess manga that I have sitting on my shelf caught my attention. So I'm drawing Najika from Kitchen Princess. While sketching this, I was feeling super nostalgic because Kitchen Princess was the first ever manga I read, and I remember studying the art for it so much. The art really has that early 2000s shoujo style, and it's a style I used to try to mimic a lot. I found it interesting that as I was drawing this, I started to remember certain style characteristics I used to try to include in my art. And one part that struck me a little funny is that I already draw big eyes. But because Najika has even bigger eyes, I draw the eyes even bigger than usual. I had a lot of fun sketching her. I kept it really simple since this is just for our test. But now I want to draw more of the characters like Daichi and Sora. And I kind of want to read through it again. So now that my sketch is done, I need to get my device ready to transfer it to my paper. So I am using my iPad for this. There is an option to hold your device as you transfer the sketch, and it will use AR technology to keep your sketch in place. But since my iPad is so big, I need to set it on something. I can't really hold it. So I came up with this. I'm using this tall box to prop up my iPad. I'll look at my screen right here and reach around the box to draw in my notebook. It's a bit awkward, but it's the best thing I could come up with. So now I select the tripod option and place my sketch on my paper. I like how you can change the transparency if you need to. So now I just start sketching where my sketch is displayed on the paper. One thing that was a bit bothersome is that when I would move my hand, it would make my iPad camera refocus. I was trying to find a setting to turn this off, but I couldn't find one. It wasn't a huge deal, and I kind of got used to knowing when it would refocus. I would mostly try to keep my hand in kind of the same spots instead of moving it all crazy all over the place, so that way it wouldn't keep refocusing. It was kind of odd looking through my iPad screen as I'm drawing because I'm kind of not looking directly at my hand, but I kind of am at the same time. Plus I was reaching around a box, which was a little awkward. Oh, also, since I'm using the free version, I can only do quick sketch mode. It has a timer, and once the timer runs out, my sketch goes out of place. If you pay for the app, you can draw as long as you want, but I don't want to pay for it. So when this would happen, I would just try to line up my sketch again, and that worked pretty okay. For transferring my sketch, I am using a random mechanical pencil I found in one of my art bins. I think I got this one from a scrawler box or something. It's actually a pretty nice mechanical pencil. It has a nice weight to it, and it just feels kind of nice. Also, I'm using my notebook for this instead of my sketchbook because my sketchbook is a bit big and my notebook is smaller and can fit into the camera. And yeah, my sketchbook is kind of bigger and wouldn't fit as nicely. As I was transferring my sketch, I was kind of skeptical of it actually working. But I was really hoping it would, because this would be really useful for transferring sketches to like wooden canvases or normal canvases. I can't use my light pad for those. I can use transfer paper, but a lot of times I don't like that as much. So if this ends up working well, I will totally use it when I want to work with canvases, because it was actually pretty simple. Okay, so now let's see how my sketch looks transferred onto the paper. I think it turned out good. It does look like my digital sketch, so yay! This app is really neat, and I do think it'll be very useful for transferring sketches to Canvas, or if I'm too lazy to use my lightboard and all that stuff. So when I was searching for weird art apps, I came across this app called Art of Weird. I guess it calls itself that because it has some weird and interesting brushes, like a worm brush. But for the most part, it's a pretty basic art app. At first I wasn't going to feature it in this video, but then I found something interesting. So a lot of times if you want your pen size to change with pressure, you need to use an Apple Pencil or a stylus that looks like this. But in this app, the brush size can change when you're using just your finger. And I thought this was so cool. Basically, if you only put the tip of your finger, the brush is smaller. And if you apply more of your finger to the screen, the brush gets larger. And when I saw this, I was amazed, and I was wondering why more art apps don't do this because it's such a cool feature. I know so many of you use your finger to draw, so I was like, this would be so cool if more art apps had this. So to test this out, I decided to draw something with my finger. We're going to kind of ignore these first two attempts because this was mostly me being stupid and not realizing you can change the brush size with this dial over here. When I would tap the dial, it would change between a smaller and larger size. So I thought those were the only two size options. But no, you can move the dial around to make it whatever size you want basically. And once I figured that out, that made things much easier. So I am doing a little drawing of the knight from Hollow Knight. I wasn't using a reference and I probably should have. I can draw him better. I drew him in my sketchbook a few times. My brother Joel and I have been playing Hollow Knight and it's so good. The art, the music, the gameplay, I love it all so much. It is a pretty hard game and I am stuck on a boss at the moment. But overall, I've been really enjoying the game. It has a very nice atmosphere. Like, it can be very calm and relaxing, and I like just walking around and exploring. But it can also be really intense and dramatic. I want to do some actual fan art for it sometime. Also, my brother Joel beat the game. I'm quite a bit behind him, so I still have a good amount of the game left. But yeah, it's super duper fun. So yeah, that's the Art of Weird app. I thought the ability to change the brush size with your finger was super cool. And I hope more apps will try to include this kind of feature. Shout out to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. Invest in yourself and your personal growth. Recently, I wanted to learn more about the fundamentals of animation, so I started taking the Art of Animation. How to Create Lifelike Movement by Emmanuel Colombo. In this class, Emmanuel goes over 4 fundamentals of animation that he feels like are really important for bringing characters to life. And he explains these fundamentals in a very easy to understand way with great examples. I put the techniques I learned in this class into the animation I use for the outro screen for my videos. I feel like the animation turned out really nicely with the help of Emmanuel's advice. Skillshare is ad-free, so you can stay in the zone while you're exploring new skills. It has new premium classes launched each week, so there's always something new to discover. And their entire catalog is now available with subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. The first 1,000 people to use the link or my code will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So go join Skillshare today, and thank you so much again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. This next app I found I thought was super cool. It's called Mental Canvas, and basically it makes your 2D art be in a 3D space. Think of it as something kind of like Paper Mario, I suppose. So the version I'm using is the promotional or free version of the app. I don't know what extra features the paid version has, but it seems like you can do a good amount in the promotional version. Right now, I'm kind of just testing out the different brushes. For the art, I think I'll be keeping it pretty simple and sketchy because I'm not sure how many layers I can use. Plus, with these brushes, I think it'd be best to keep things simple. So I didn't have much an idea of what I wanted to draw. I kind of just started sketching a boy character in 3/4 view and decided to see where that would take me. Also, I want to say I love this pencil brush. The texture of it and how it works is so nice, and I want it in other programs for some reason. I don't know. I really like it, and just like how it looks. I feel like it looks really nice. One thing I didn't like as much is the eraser. I can't seem to change the size of it, which is pretty bothersome. And it seems to kind of work like a vector eraser, and I'm assuming that's because the lines I am drawing are vector lines. Basically, vector things aren't drawn with pixels, so you can make them super big or super small and they won't lose quality. And for this app, it makes sense to use vector since you do a lot of zooming in and out and the camera moves around a lot in the 3D space. So yeah, I liked the brushes, but I didn't really like the eraser. So right now it doesn't look like a 3D space because I'm in the drawing mode, but later when we go into the camera mode, it will look more like a 3D space. One part that was hard is I couldn't flip my canvas to see if things were a bit off or wonky, and I flip my canvas a lot to check these kind of things. So that was making things a bit difficult, but then I thought of something later. I could have seen my drawing flipped if I went into the camera mode and then turned my sketch around in the 3D space. My 2D thinking brain isn't used to thinking in 3D. But thankfully I feel like my drawing isn't too wonky. When I did see it flipped, I was just like, oh, I guess it's okay. I wasn't like, ooh, it's really wonky. So I feel like it turned out okay. So like I said, I wasn't sure what I was going to do for this picture, but I wanted to include elements in the foreground and the background so that I could take advantage of the 3D feature. And I thought maybe I could put this character in a forest with trees. So first I want to make branches that'll be in front of the character. So I press this button to make a new canvas layer. We then get this window that pops up and allows you to place where you want this layer to be positioned in the 3D space. And I want it to be more forward, so I swipe down to make it move forward where I want it to be. I ended up moving it more forward later on, and now I just draw some branches. When I was drawing the foreground and background elements, I tried to draw outside the area that I thought I would be including or showing. Because the camera will move around and show different views, I wanted to make sure there wasn't just white or empty space that shows up when it moves. But I did have to draw a lot more outside of the area than I expected. I had to include a good amount of branches and background outside of the camera view. So for the background, I did the same thing I did for the branches in the foreground. I made a new canvas layer, but this time I made it go back in space. To help the character stand out, I thought I would make the background be gray and make the character be filled in white. At first I just erased the gray where the character was, but then when you move things around, the colors don't line up correctly. I didn't think about this. So instead I filled in the character with white on its canvas layer, so it would always line up. Also, I kind of forgot to draw his shirt. Sometimes when I'm just sketching heads and shoulders, I don't think about clothes. So yeah, I forgot to draw some kind of shirt on him, but just to clarify, he's definitely wearing pants. He's not some weird man with no clothes in the forest, just to clarify. So lastly, I kind of just added some more branches and changed up the background a little bit. I didn't like the branches in the background, so I just decided to add trees. To make my video of the camera moving around, I move the camera to where I want it and press this button to add a new keyframe. I kept doing this until I felt like I had enough views. Okay, so let's see how it looks. I think this is pretty cool. It gives the art a really neat effect. I kind of want to try playing around with this more and maybe try something a bit more complicated. I wonder if I could do something like this in Blender. Maybe I'll look into that. So the last app is the one that inspired this entire video, and it's actually a website called sketch.metademolab.com. Basically, you can upload a character drawing and it'll automatically animate it with default animations. I wanted to see what my art would look like in this, so I'm going to draw a few chibi versions of my characters. Many of you often ask me to do a chibi tutorial on how I draw chibis, and how I stylize chibis often changes. It depends on how chibi I want them to be. In this case, I decided to go with a kind of taller chibi since I felt like that would work better for the animations. For the head, I make it super duper round, and I also make the ears very round. For the facial features, I place them very low on the head. This makes them look cute. But right now it does look a little weird since it's just my sketch. For the body, I'm going to make it a total of 3 heads tall. The torso will be the same length as 1 head, and the legs will be the same length as 1 head. A lot of times for my normal characters, the torso ends at the halfway point, but things are a little bit more different for chibis. For the arms, I make them the same length as the torso, but this is including their hands, so they are a bit shorter than what I usually draw for my normal characters. I don't want the arms to look super lanky, so I make them a bit shorter. So yeah, that's basically how I draw chibis. I kept things really simple in shape, especially in this case, since I want to make things more simple for the animations. Like, I drew circles for the hands because if you draw normal hands, they can end up in really weird positions with the way the software works. I know this because I did some tests with this Toon Link beforehand. For the characters, I decided to draw chibi versions of Brayson, Emmett, and Chase. So basically the main boy characters in my webcomic, minus Zeke. I kept using the same line art for the body and just changing the heads. This made things a lot faster for me. And for the coloring, I colored each character with their colors. Brayson always wears some kind of green, Emmett wears yellow, and Chase wears red. Also, I drew all of the characters in a kind of T pose because that's often what they showed in the examples. It makes it easier to show where the arms and legs are if they aren't in a weird pose. Okay, now that all of the chibis are done, I can upload them to the website to be animated. Once my character is scanned in and the software has it selected, I can place where the different parts of the body are. The software did a decent job doing this on its own, but I did move them around just a little bit. Okay, so let's see how the animations turned out. They're all so funny. It's definitely not amazing animation quality, but it is super fun to play around with. It was especially funny seeing Brayson do movements he probably never do. So I ended up trying something kind of weird. In the example area, there's a page that has 2 characters on it, and it got me wondering what would happen if I tried to include multiple characters at the same time. And the result was super weird. It looks like Emma is holding them by their shirt collars or something. So those are all the apps for this video. I had so much fun using them and trying new things. If you know of any weird, funny, or useful art apps, let me know down in the comments. Also, thank you so much to my super amazing patrons for their support. It means a ton to me. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!